But what I want to talk to you today about is three operational ways how we bring together what the Treasury wants to do for the UK PLC's purse and the return on investment, what our Department of Business Innovation and Skills wants to do in terms of the strategy for skills and vocational education and training, and what the education and energy departments want to do, and see how they've been pulled together into certain structures and processes that turn all that policy intention into practice at an operational level. Firstly, this is Energy and Utility Skills Group. We are a sector skills council. We work in the power, gas, waste management, water, energy efficiency and renewable sectors. These are our employers. They pay our membership, they pay our wages, they set the agenda for products and services they would like us to work with them to develop. We help turn their employer policy and needs into practice for them. And if we don't do it well, they don't become members. So in a sense, we answer to them, they are our members. And with me. Our three key purposes are to attract new talent for our employers, to develop their workforces, and to assure a high level of competence across the businesses. We do this through this range of products and services: labour market intelligence and workforce planning tools. We've done this for Shanghai Light and Power, Hong Kong Light and Power, Agreco in the Middle East. We do it for our own domestic companies as well. We develop standards and apprentices, and the new Trailblazer apprenticeship that I'll talk a little bit about in a few moments. We recruit and we develop training solutions, skills, competency and assurance schemes. We administer and we quality assure and regulate, in effect, for our employers. And the quality assurance of training providers and colleges. Effectively, we have our own set of employer-defined training criteria around what quality or good looks like, and we hold our training providers on behalf of our employers to it. And obviously, there's also various consultancy services. The delegates that were across in the UK recently got a chance to meet three of our leading employers in the National Skills Academy for Power. This is a virtual academy, a think tank. And in answer to the question earlier about which level of employer do you use to engage with this, this is populated or staffed by the human resource directors across our companies as members. It's tasked with transforming the future of skills and competence delivery across the UK power sector. It's helping address the critical skills challenges faced now and in the future. It's achieving its goals through targeted investment and collaboration. It assimilates at a sector level the key labour market intelligence and information that we need to do to address skills gaps, shortages and competency needs. It's made up of companies that represent the transmission sector within the UK, and this is the map of what transmission looks like in the UK. Here are the sectors moving the high voltage around the country, the part of the national grid. It's made up of the companies in the distribution sector of that electricity, of the national grid. That's how the UK is currently carved up. And remember that in the UK, 25 years ago, all of this would have been nationalised. These are all now private companies doing the role of a nationalised industry 25 years ago. And many of the skills issues and competence issues that we challenge is just the shock or the hangover in the transition from a nationalised industry to private sector, because there is a bubble or a development gap that you'll see in a minute that meant for 10 years while all this was getting sorted out, there's very little training going on. And that's led to what we've called like a skills or a competency cliff coming in about 8 to 10 years, where there's a real kind of workforce development crisis that we're working hard now to address. As well as the transmission and distribution companies, we also work with and support the generation, and probably critically importantly, the supply chain contractors to these companies. And it's because of the work of the asset owners, the distribution companies, and the supply chain that we are able to work hard at working out what that mission for our National Skills Academy for Power means, which is basically through collaboration, we will develop the capacity, capability, quality, and consistency of training and education to deliver the skills needs of a sustainable UK power sector. That's the goal, that's the raison d'etre, that's why they exist, that's why the human resource directors come together to try and work this out with our help. having these people in that room allows us to develop labour market intelligence for the sector like this graph shows you. You can actually see the difficulties we face and the skills challenges here when you look at the age profile along the x-axis, the numbers of employees along the y-axis, and then their credentials in the colour code. We know that in 8 to 10 years' time, there are huge issues in staff shortfall, in competence around the technician levels and the higher education levels, and that's just to replace current capacity. That's just to keep the lights on and the kettles boiling. And everything that we do at the moment for the National Skills Academy is around addressing that and these issues. We're doing it in several ways around increasing the capacity in these sectors. We're looking at 4 dimensions to capacity. The first one is an obvious one staring us all in the face when I walk into committee rooms and talk to the chief executives or the human resource directors in our company. Most of the UK power industry looks like me. And from an equality and diversity point of view, there is a huge untapped talent resource just by making our companies look more like the countries that they operate in. So addressing the equality and diversity issues will actually get them focusing on more of the population, the whole population, for potentially talent sources. Now, these issues are historic. They're quite complex to unveil, but they are top of the list of our company's chief executives in order to address, to look closely at equality and diversity. We are also looking to re-enfranchise or reintroduce the disengaged, those that were switched off by education, that have gone out into the world really disengaged and disconnected, and are actually now quite a considerable and costly burden on the welfare budgets. And one of the measurements, there was a question about how you measure the return on investment. We know how much these people cost sitting on welfare and income support benefits. So if we can actually turn them into productive workers and citizens in the UK, then there's a kind of win-win there, both in terms of the taxation and returns and the savings to the welfare and income support benefits. So there's the disengaged, and linked to that is also the cross-skilling. We know that there are a lot of people sitting in neighbouring workforces or neighbouring sectors that have almost the skills that we need, and we need to develop building programmes to pull them across into the power sector where there is surplus elsewhere. One obvious example is rail. We know there's lots of overhead lines and competence within the rail sector that we can build on and add to and pull across. We do an awful lot of work with the military as well, picking up people coming out of the army and the various armed forces, pulling them into the sector as well. That's another obvious one for capacity. The other key one is youth and schools and STEM and catching young people early enough. We know that there is a science, technology, engineering and maths issues in schools. We know that we're not getting the talent we need, so we need to get more of those employers actively engaged in helping support and enriching the curriculum in schools and colleges. All this in response to that challenge there, that demographic time bomb ticking from a skills and competence point of view. The one last issue I just want to touch on in my last minute or so is how we re-engage or reignite the interest and the talent of the disaffected young people who've come through school and the academic curriculum was not them. Some of these people have gone through school and made choices in subjects that mean they know nothing of power. They know nothing of energy, of our employers. And we can come at it through careers, but careers guidance, information, advice and guidance is quite problematic in schools. What we've looked to do is design an entire bite-sized program, small nuggets of learning, small chunks of learning and assessment that are all about sector attraction. The good, the fun, the interesting, engaging things that our employees in our sector do, so they can understand what a steel tower looks like, does, and how it works, and the maths and the science behind it for overhead lines as a profession. They can be taught these things by an overhead lines person as opposed to a physics teacher. They can look at all the sector attractive stuff in easy single ways that we can certificate, or they can build these into long programs. We've developed this framework. We have about 46 of the bites already. There's a really interesting innovative assessment and grading technique used in there that we have developed especially for this, for those interested in assessment and grading. That approach has been so interesting that Malta has now picked it up, and we'll use it as an alternative curriculum going forward for 14-year-olds who are not bound to or destined for university. An entire curriculum. We've focused it on gas and power and energy and the skills and the competencies needed in our young people for our sector in this kind of fun-sized bundle. They will open up the technique now to cover things like history and geography, such as the strength and the innovation wrapped up in how we're assessing and grading this. Just small chunks of learning that they've never encountered before to try and re-engage them. Because potentially, those young people and the people coming out of schools is actually how we plug that skills gap, along with the competencies and the workforce and the talent that exists in other related sectors. Thank you for your time.